I want to thank all of you, particularly the panel that's come from all over to be here. This is really a culmination, this building, of what we're going to start to try to accomplish together today. So I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you for being here, and then Jackie Schaefer is going to be our sort of leading things along the way here. So I want to thank WH Pacific, and they actually are the ones that printed the invitations and sort of helped us get this organized. This looks like way too formal a setting, and the idea is that we're really family here. This is our 15th year since we founded the Housing Research Center, and when we founded the center, we had a very clear mission, and it was housing. But before we started to do the first excavation for the research and testing facility, the name changed. It was no longer the Housing Research and Testing Facility, it was the Housing and Infrastructure Research and Testing Facility, because being builders, it was all about us until we started realizing how housing is a piece of everything. We cannot isolate it. So with that idea came this synergy that indeed it's all about sustainability and all those pieces. So this center that you see here, which was with this addition, is actually called our Sustainable Northern Communities Center. And it's for you. It's for us as Alaskans. The idea being that this is a home away from home for us to come together and find some solutions together. All of you that have been in Alaska for a long time and been involved in our future realize how many wonderful people have given great effort in all kinds of directions to get us to where we all want to go. And if we don't work together, we're not going to get there. We've learned things, we've made mistakes and learned from those mistakes, and we've had great successes. This first panel in this first group is just the beginning of what we hope is something that will grow and be able to be an example of success for all the circumpolar north, where we can work together, listen to each other, take the strengths that each of us has in our own agencies and in our own focus, our missions, if you will, bring those missions together to give us a sustainable future in Alaska. That's the purpose of this. So really thank you all for being here. This is the beginning of something that I think will become large. We've worked with the university on their sustainability efforts. They can certainly be a partner. Everyone that's at the table here is not everyone. This will grow and we'll all work together. So this is just the start of the discussion. It's not a very long meeting, but it seemed like a good beginning with everyone here for the Rural Energy Conference to sort of, in a way, christen our Sustainable Northern Communities Edition and have you all here. This is your building. This is your research center. This is our state and our future and the future of our children. So we'll work together, and I'll let Jackie keep things on task here.
Thank you, Jack. So my name is Jackie Schaefer. I work for WH Pacific. I'm a project specialist. I do a little bit of everything. My background is in housing. I'm an interior designer, decorator. You know, we kind of get the lesser side of architecture. But we're the creative side that engage with people. So for the last 3 years, I've been working in regional energy planning, working very closely with the state of Alaska and Department of Energy on trying to find the realistic way to approach energy. What we realized is that energy created a platform for all of this. We realize energy is connected to housing, it's connected to water and sewer, it's connected to infrastructure and roads, it's connected to landfill. And the power generation in our state in rural Alaska is in dire need of help. So how can we bring all this and collectively find solutions? This roundtable was kind of just a brainstorm of a bunch of creative minds. I think that we're at a cusp of something new and exciting in our state. The Rural Energy Conference is a great example of how networking, and we have the people in place now to make that change. We're on a really strict time frame, so I'm not going to talk a lot. We're going to go through a 5-minute lightning round with each presenter. We're going to start with Mike Hoffman with ADCP, talking about solutions that have happened in Alaska. And sometimes I think it's just sharing those stories that we don't get to hear because we're all over the place. Logistically, Alaska is challenging. So we need to have one place to kind of bring that synergy and share. That's really common in our native cultures. So for me, it's real natural to get up and talk to people and bring people together, and usually Eskimo dance, but we're not going to do that today. They do it every single time I go to Barrow. They either land a whale or do something that requires dancing, and I'm always in heaven. So with further ado, I will bring up Mike Hoffman. We're going to just talk loudly because we all do this. We don't. The mic is actually for. Do you need us to speak in the mic?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Perfect.
So whatever is comfortable for you, I'm going to say. So,
Perfect.
Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Jack. Jack and Jackie? Thank you. I just thought of that. It's always that first moose that walks out in this meadow and bellows and gets shot. So I'm happy to start this off. I met Jack last year at our economic development meeting there at ABCP convention. I also met Gene there for the first time, and Jack had everybody memorized on every little syllable that he spoke about the innovative thoughts and ideas he was working on up here. So during the AFN convention, I came up here and saw this beautiful facility. And Jack is one of those guys, as all of us on this panel know, will get you fired up and get you going, and you won't even know how to stop sometimes. And I appreciate that. I'm Mike Hoffman. I'm the Executive Vice President of ABCP. A little bit of background on our region. We have the lowest per capita income, the highest unemployment rate, the highest suicide rate. We don't have tourism, we don't have oil, we don't have forestry, we don't have any. We have a rich culture. But every day that we work at ABCP, we're trying to improve the quality of life in our region. And the two things that I wanted to talk to all of you about that we're doing there, improving the quality of life. Our long-term goal for energy is a 38-mile road it's a freight energy corridor that connects the Yukon and Kuskokwim River across at its closest point. It's something that we've been working on for about 5 years, and we are in the study of it right now. We're about $6 million into that study, and we did it from the ground up. Rather than somebody coming in and asking us, our tribes came to us. We're 56 tribes. The tribe of Cascade came to us, pushed us at us, wanted their dilapidated old tramway got burned down, and they asked us to review a 1980 study on it. And our thought behind that is that when the natural gas line comes into Fairbanks, we're going to be able to tap off of that since they're extending the Elliott Highway, and we want to be ready for that. And we're moving along with that. That's our long-term goal, and I'm glad, Jackie, you said we have 5 minutes or so. I want to keep this short. Good. Our short-term goal is conserving energy, and you always hear people talking about that. We're going to conserve energy this way. ABCP, we have a number of things going on. One of them is our aviation program, flight school, and our airframe power plant school, and we're looking for student housing for it. We had a grant from the state of Alaska. We turned around and we approached Jack, and we said, Jack, we want some innovative ideas. He came to us with the integrated trust program that they're working here at the Co-Climate Research. We're going to integrate that into these 2 duplexes that are going to be right on the road on the highway to the airport. It's going to be a demonstration project. 48 villages that surround Bethel are going to be able to see this, the sign, come drop by, look at it, see how we do this. And solar panels, whatever it takes. We're going to think outside the box. I think, Jack, when I spoke to you, I said, I don't know why I paraphrased, but I said, Jack, I want you to think outside the box, and Jack in the box, and so here we go. So it just goes on and on and on. But we're going to take it one step further with that. Not only are we excited about building these duplexes and showing our region and the world and the state that we can do this zero energy duplexes and homes, but we're working with the village of Chewaspluk. White spruce grows all over our region on the Yukon Kuskokwim River. We talked to Case Nelson, who his family has owned a sawmill up in Chewaspluk for the past 50 years. He said that he could, with a few little moves here, produce 1 million board feet of white spruce on the Kuskokwim for this, so we can build and manufacture our own trusses. 40% of our costs, everything that comes into the Kuskokwim region, is transportation. This will eliminate a lot of that, and we are so excited about it. And we're so excited about this partnership with Cold Climate Research. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you, Mike. So next we have Kimberly Carlo, who we just found out I have another cousin in the room. We share cousins, so that makes us cousins. Anybody who knows me knows I have cousins from Mill to Kaktovik, so now I'm interior too. So welcome, Kimberly, from the Interior Housing Authority.
Like Jackie said, my name is Kimberly Carlo. I'm originally from Fort Yukon. I started working for Interior Regional Housing Authority in '08. Started up their weatherization program. Started working with AHFC. Right now with Interior Regional Housing Authority, we serve 32 communities, and in the interior region there's 42 villages that TCC serves. So we're serving 32 villages as their tribal designated housing entity. But we're also providing weatherization services to like Galena, Phyllis from Galena. Even though we're not their tribal designated housing authority, we're still partnering up with them and providing services in those communities. Jack talked about, well, what are we doing? How can we work together, being sustainable? What are we doing here? And we get our direction from our communities. We get our direction from our tribes. Going back to what do we know? What's been working for us? Because they know what's going on out there. So getting our direction from them. This is what we want to see. This is what we want to last. Being clean. Right now we're working in Minto. Pilar just came back from Minto with us. We're able to work with the DOE to do some upgrades on their lodge. We're working with Kayakuk with the VEAP and START grants to start up their renewable energy for biomass. And then we're also providing weatherization services in our communities. Working with USDA, we just had a meeting with them. How can we leverage that funding? And letting people know when getting AEA grants and finding out the feasibility studies, is this going to work for the community? And we're not just going out there and saying, yes, this is going to work for you. Like you, we want to hear it from our communities. We want to serve our villages. This is what we want. This is what worked before. I've seen a couple of Jack's presentations, and he goes out and he meets with the people in the community and says, this is what works. This is what we did for thousands of years. This is how we lived. Now, how can we integrate that technology with what we're learning now to be more efficient and make those houses more efficient, more sustainable? So that's what we're working on here in the interior, and we're located here in Fairbanks. Even though we do provide services to all of our villages, we have a log cabin here. It's over by Hunter's School, and it's a 6-star log cabin. We have the walls this thick. It's filled with cellulose. We have monitoring systems to find out how much fuel is it going to take to heat that house this winter. 100 gallons, I can't remember exactly, somebody said. We have all kinds of technologies in there, but still it looks traditional. It's a big log cabin. It's here in Fairbanks, a big beautiful log cabin, and that's one of the first ones that we've built here in Fairbanks. And so wanting to go back to what works in our communities and what the tribes want, using those technologies, and of course being clean with what we go in with, and making sure that we are as efficient as possible. So being able to work with all these different organizations and with all the different communities, like Jackie said, we're big. So even the things that are needed in Holy Cross may not be needed in Arctic Village because they're so far away, even though we do serve those areas. So if there's anything that, if you have questions on any of our projects or want to know how we're doing something, I definitely recommend that you check out our website. It's www.irha.org. And there you'll find a list of contact information. You'll find out our employees, what we're doing. We have some projects listed there. We just got a newsletter out. If you're interested in that, let me know. I'll be here for a while, and I could get you that information just to let you know what we're doing, because we definitely want to share our resources. Working with Eric at ANTHC, thank you. I mean, willing to partner up with us, people taking the time to do that, because we want to serve our villages and we want to make sure that our villages don't go away. We've just had so many challenges with that. Our schools close, and some of our communities are just bursting. We don't have enough people enough houses in those communities, and then in some communities we don't have enough people to keep a school open. So there's different challenges in our different communities. So just working with them and trying to be as versatile as possible so that we can meet the challenges out there. If you have any questions, I'll be around for a while. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Sally Cox. She's telephonically because she couldn't make it up here today. Sally, could you speak loud enough and do a test?
Can you hear me right now?
Oh, I think we can. Wonderful. So, Sally Cox, I don't have a picture
I
of
just have to
you.
apologize because I got a cold, so I'm going to try really hard not to cough while I'm talking. But I wanted to thank you so much for allowing me to participate by teleconference.
All right, so the floor
I'm a
is
planner
yours,
with the
Sally.
Division of Community and Regional Affairs, and our division really deals with local governments throughout the state of Alaska. But I was asked to speak about community planning, and community planning is really an inherently collaborative process. I think that in the process of assisting communities, planners often work with many stakeholders to build meaningful relationships and agreements in land use development and other community planning contexts. So being collaborative sort of comes natural to me in my profession. But I would have to say that my collaborative success story is the Newtok Planning Group, because my work with this group, including the Village of Newtok, really informed the process that's developed with my work with other communities since then. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that experience. So in May of 2006, the Village of Newtok was asked for DCRA's assistance with the relocation of the village. And for those of you that may not be aware, the village has been in the process of relocating for the past 20 years. It's been a phenomenal and very difficult process, but the village has to move because it's literally being lost to erosion. And I don't know, I see Mike Black's name with ANTHC on the list. I don't know if he's there, but...
I'm here.
Okay, hi Mike. Well, this was all happening when Mike Black was the director of DCRA, and he basically tasked me to assist the village with the move. So it's his fault. But so one of the things that we learned pretty quickly, and there were, obviously we were faced with enormous challenges. The community was faced with huge challenges, and we as agencies trying to help were also, because there was no lead agency at either the state or federal level to help with relocation. There wasn't any established framework for assisting relocating communities, and there was no dedicated funding source for relocation, so it seemed like almost an impossible effort. But the other thing that we also realized pretty quickly was that many of the needs of rural communities could be met through the expertise and resources currently available through state and federal agencies and regional and local organizations. So it meant, once again, collaborating, putting our heads together. The biggest challenge probably in bringing together all of this multidisciplinary expertise and resources is that many government agencies, as probably a lot of you are aware, tend to work within administrative and funding silos. And so we had to figure out a way to break down that silo mentality. And one really great way was to just invite everybody to come out and meet on a regular basis. So what Jack is doing right now is a great way to do that, to bring everybody together, because when you bring people together and you have a common effort that you're working on, people just naturally start brainstorming. And that's really what happened with the Newtok Planning Group. And although we probably started with representatives from about 10 agencies to begin with, the group got larger and larger, and things actually started to happen. So I think, one of the things that was a voluntary effort, but I think that a lot of the participants realized that it was beneficial to the work that they individually do because of the leveraging of project-related resources, and also because if you know about work that somebody else is doing in the community, you're more likely to decrease conflicts in development activities that happen. And so there was just a tremendous amount of infrastructure that has been developed at the community's new village site McTarvik, the first thing that happened was the barge landing, and Mike probably remembers the EDA grant application that was developed and how excited I was when I found out that we'd actually won the award, because that was the first piece of infrastructure that was actually funded at this new village site where there was no population. So it was really a big deal, and that sort of started the ball rolling on a whole lot of other things. But the money that we got from EDA wasn't really enough to build a barge landing, as we very quickly learned. And so we received money from DOT, and then the community was able to provide BIA, Indian Reservation Roads money, and that barge landing got built. And once that was built, a lot of other things started to happen. The New Talk Planning Group, along with Mike's help, were able to negotiate with the Department of Defense to get the help from the Military Innovative Readiness Training Program. There was an access road that was built by the IRT, the military that were out at the McTarvik site, and that was truly a collaborative effort because it took state funding, Corps of Engineers design, and BIA IRR road funding to build that. And then there's the beginning of an evacuation center there too. And then now, right now, things are kind of ramping up again for the community. There was a disaster declaration that New Talk was part of, and as a result of that, there's a lot of funding that's available through FEMA, and it looks like we will be able to have about 15 homes either relocated or newly built over at the new village site, probably in the next couple of years. And that will be a huge piece of progress for that community. So, it hasn't all been an easy process. It's been a very difficult process, and I think one of the most important lessons learned, anytime entities are collaborating on behalf of a community, is that critical to the process is strong community leadership. And if that goes away, and it did temporarily with New Talk, things stop, and you just have to realize that the community is really the piece that holds everything together, and without that, what we do is really not that important. So I think that's really important to understand the importance of community and how their leadership is really essential and how much they drive the process. One of the things that has also come out of this collaborative process is the comprehensive strategic management plan, and we did develop one for New Talk, and we're actually going to be starting up this whole process again with the communities of Shishmaref, Kivalina, and Shaktulip, also using the interagency working group structure and developing comprehensive strategic management plans targeting what the communities want to do with the future and how we're going to sequence events and identify funding sources and try to make things actually happen for the communities that really need help. So that's it for me.
All right, so our next panelist is Jean Theriault with the Alaska Energy Authority. One of the things that opened the door to this platform was energy, so that is a vitally important concept when you're talking about any kind of planning. Where is that energy going to come from, and how is it going to feed that new community? So, welcome, Jean.
Thank you. And I haven't been to New Talk, and I've been to the new site. I was actually there when the barge landing was first constructed. And I want to let Sally know that Chris Goba at AEA is working diligently to try and find out a funding source for how we help this community bridge. As she mentioned, there is the possibility of some FEMA-funded new homes to be built on the new village site, but there's no source of power. So we've got this dilemma of, do you move homes after there's a source of power? So is it the homes that justify the power, or is it the power that justifies the homes? And so we are trying to come to grips with that and figure out a combination of funding that might get us over that dilemma. At the Rural Energy Conference the past couple of days, I did roll out what we're calling the AKAES, the Alaska Affordable Energy Strategy, which is a new challenge that the legislature handed us this year to really take our current regional planning and go the next step. And there is the promise of a potential long-term funding source that is tied to the gas pipeline that we hope to see take that next great resource in the state of Alaska to market. But the thought of policymakers was that for those communities that are outside the core of the pipeline corridor, where's the benefit for them long term? And so there is this suggestion that 20% of those resources, the royalties after deposits into the permanent fund, would be accounted for. And if you were at the conference this morning, you heard Commissioner Baylash say that their estimate right now is that that would be a little north of $200 million a year. Now, it sounds like a lot of money. We know with the energy issues that confront the state, and certainly out in rural Alaska, that's not a tremendous amount of money. So we are working now to figure out ways, and we have to make recommendations to the legislature on how you would leverage that amount of money to really move forward with energy across the state in the future. However, a pipeline, as we know, has been delayed, may be delayed, and we want whatever process we come up with to be very instructive with how we continue to operate the programs that we currently operate and use the money that we currently get from the legislature. So we are knitting together that regional planning, wanting to know what the villages, communities, and local level, regional level think can be done, should be done with regards to energy in their area. One of the things we rolled out is the way we're looking at this is sort of a quadrant. And villages across the state, communities across the state fall into these different quadrants. And we were a little bit fearful that villages would see that they fall into the quadrant that has no access to gas, and they have limited or no access to renewable resources, and so they're just sunk. And we really don't want people to get so fixated on where are they right now, because we want to implement different projects and programs to suggest that we can move a village from one quadrant to another. We can move them from a quadrant where they currently don't have a renewable, but identifying one, and we can move them over to the quadrant that maybe they don't have natural gas, but they do have renewable energy. And then ultimately, at the very end, after we utilize all the tools we have, there's the suggestion that off of this future revenue source, there may be a need for some kind of a fuel subsidy that may be patterned along the lines of power cost equalization. We again will be making recommendations. There's lots of policy calls to be made in the future going forward on that. So originally when we had developed a slide that had these quadrants, right in the middle there was sort of a bullseye, a series of circles. And those circles represented the things that could be done in all of the quadrants. Certainly that's energy efficiency. Any building you have, if you can build it efficient, or if you can modify it so it's efficient, that's energy that is saved. There's efficiency of your power generation. There's the desire to capture waste heat in a community and put it to good use. Those are things that are common to all of those quadrants. But we may in fact have some communities that have limited opportunities, and so those efforts we will want to really push down really deep in the community to make sure that whatever unit their source of energy is, they get as much benefit for each unit of energy that is purchased. So again, we're really hoping to work with people in the regional planning and then moving into this AKAES process that we believe will be sort of the long-term vision, ongoing planning, because planning never stops. That you can always do something to better the community. So thank you.
Our next panelist is Gretchen Fauske, who I've had the privilege of intermingling with this lovely family. So Gretchen will introduce herself and talk a little bit about how economic development is so vitally important. To me, one of the most important things that we sometimes overlook and silo separately, when it really should be integrated into every project that we look at.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm Gretchen Fauske. I'm with the Alaska Division of Economic Development. We have a number of partners here in this room, so it's kind of fun to get to highlight some of the work that we've been doing together. I wanted to start with just a definition of economic development, which is the process of creating wealth through investment and reinvestment in a community, resulting in more jobs, higher incomes, an expanded tax base, a more diversified economy, business improvements, and a better quality of life, which Jackie says economic development is basically everything. You can make connections all over the place. Obviously, housing is a major component of economic development. People need access to affordable housing. Housing needs to be available. It should be energy efficient. And then of course you have your home building industry, which employs a number of people. And then you have locally manufactured products used in housing, which again keeps people employed. You're using local resources to build homes. In the Division of Economic Development, we have a number of programs that support this. We have the Alaska Product Preference Program, the Alaska Forest Product Preference Program, and the Made in Alaska Program. I could speak for way too long about these programs, so if you're interested in learning more, please talk to me afterwards and I'll direct you to the appropriate information and probably bore you a little bit. Manufacturing in Alaska is interesting. As other people have noted, it's challenging, but there's definitely great opportunity. There are a lot of reasons to purchase locally made products. For one, it keeps money circulating in our economy. Local products help stabilize the economy a little bit. So, for example, a rigid foam board insulation that's manufactured locally, when it was introduced to the market, it brought the prices down significantly for Alaska. Previously, we had the highest cost of rigid foam board insulation in the country, and so the local product entering the market really brought the cost down for everybody, which is fantastic. Often our products are energy efficient. They're designed for our climate and our conditions. Many of them are environmentally friendly, and of course you have the custom quality and the consumer confidence of knowing that you can reach out to the people and actually see where these products are being made. You know the people who are making them. So I wanted to share 3 projects with you. 2 are studies, and 1 is a finished project. The first one, Mike already spoke about a little bit. It was a study for the pre-feasibility of the truss manufacturing facility in Bethel. That is an incredibly exciting project to us. I'm not going to speak too much about it since you already talked about it a little bit, but a couple things, just the opportunity that's there. In Bethel, 40% of housing units are overcrowded, so there's a need. There's a demand because population is growing, and there's a huge opportunity because cost of construction materials are 61% more expensive in Bethel than they are in Anchorage. And so for ABCP to invest in this manufacturing facility, it can help really bring costs down and employ people and use local lumber, which is just the trifecta of wonderful things happening. The second project, we partnered with Cool Climate Housing on that. The second project, we also partnered with Jack's team again. It's a development of an affordable, energy efficient design concept and cost comparison of local and non-local timber products in Sitka. And in addition to working with Jack's team, we're working with the Sitka Community Development Corporation. And basically what they're doing, the opportunity there is that they have a large workforce, little unemployment, and a small percentage of the population under poverty, in poverty levels. But the cost of land exceeds the need for most of the population. So most medium income families are renting. So Sitka Community Development Council is looking at investing in a community land trust where they can then build homes on that land and sell them to people. So it's really exciting. So that way people could actually buy their homes instead of continuing to rent. So Cool Climate Housing had 4 designs, and they looked at energy efficiency, building with local materials, and also identified a few local sawmills that can help supply those local materials. So again, that's a fantastic opportunity. And the third project is a finished project. It's actually in Anchorage. We called it the Made in Alaska Home. We worked with a local developer called the Peterson Group. And in that project, we just really looked at connecting consumers to more locally made building products. So it's everything from your countertops, your cabinets, your insulation, your asphalt, which is a given, that kind of thing. And then some more decorative finishes like art tiles and highlighted Alaskan artists, because we looked at this whole concept of an Alaska home and everything that goes in it. So you can continue expanding out into your edible garden in the backyard and everything like that, just living this entire Alaskan lifestyle. So that project was very successful. We had our grand opening 2 weeks ago. I think we had about 400 people come through, and we really, like I said, we're connecting the consumers, the do-it-yourselfers, the builders, and also the retailers to the local products to help make them accessible to people. So it was very exciting, and our work isn't done. We're going to keep working, hopefully with ABCP, hopefully with Sitka, with Jack's team, and continue connecting people to locally made products. And also our logo is North Opportunity, so we see huge opportunity for Alaska and local building projects. So thanks.
All right, next we have Pilar Thomas, who is with the Department of Energy. She's acting director of Office of Indian. Come on, say it for me. I always mix it up.
We just say Office of Indian Energy.
There you go, Office of Indian Energy. That I think I could handle. So welcome, Pilar.
Hey, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the hump speaker. So after me, it's all downhill. So I'm going to be quick. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I'm glad to be back up here in Fairbanks. I appreciated the earthquake this morning. I'm from Southern California. We used to have those all the time. I miss them. So just felt like being home again. On the energy side, I want to commend Gene and his group on the regional energy planning exercise. We're going to try and figure out some ways on how we leverage the work we're doing with tribal entities up here, Alaska Native tribal governments, corporations, and other tribal entities to improve the energy situation in Alaska Native villages in rural Alaska. Our premier, if you will, program is the START program, and it stands for Strategic Technical Assistance Response Teams. But the idea behind the START program is to have a holistic approach to addressing the energy issues in a village, in the community, community-wide. And so it fits well, I think, with the theme of taking a look at how you not only look at things holistically and sustain them, but what does it take to do that? Energy is hard. It's not rocket science, but it is hard. And it's especially hard in small communities where you don't have a lot of human capacity. You don't have the PhDs that we hire to invent the crazy technologies that we try and convince people to deploy to save them money in the technology space. But they do have certainly a great need, and I think our START program and a lot of the technical assistance that we do is trying to recognize the holistic approach that's necessary in these islanded, as we call it, islanded grids, the microgrids, the small individual systems that exist nowhere else in the United States for all intents and purposes. In the lower 48, we're used to the big grid. We can afford some failures on the grid every now and then because we just reroute the power. But we know that we can't do that here. So whatever we do in the village and trying to help them with their energy issues has to, first of all, appreciate that aspect of the environment, and second of all, appreciate the community aspect of it. At least with the START program and with our approach to dealing with tribal communities, I think, at the heart of it is the plan. And at the heart of it is, how are we going to move from where we are? First of all, where are we? What is our baseline energy use? How are we using it? What form is it taking? Is it heat? Is it power? Is it transportation fuels? Where are we and where do we want to go? What does it mean to change our energy situation? Is it just reducing the cost of power? And is that just the amount of power we use or the amount of energy we use? And of course, that's important, energy efficiency and conservation. There's no sense in wasting power if you don't have to, or wasting heat. But it's also, how much are we paying for that power? So how do we reduce the cost to produce that power? But where is that, and where do we want to go to? And setting realistic expectations and community-based goals is at the heart, we think, of energy planning. Where does the community want to go? What do the stakeholders need to do to move that community there? At the other heart of it is stakeholder collaboration. We've heard about collaboration already. If you can't get the school district and the village corporation and the tribal government and the city government and the wastewater utility and the sawmill or the fish processing plant or the grocery store or the marina or whatever the key big stakeholders, and of course the tribal members, to sit down and work through together where they're going, what we've seen, unfortunately, is everybody going in a different direction, doing their own thing. And what that means is you have an incredibly disaggregated approach to solving the energy challenges in a village. So stakeholder collaboration and coordination, first of all, creates the community in it together. But second of all, it gives you the opportunity to create scale, which reduces your costs. If I can get the school, when they're doing their energy efficiency upgrades at the school, to collaborate with the tribal government and buy all the products together to do all the energy efficiency at once, then Kim's not going to charge us an arm and a leg to do the energy efficiency that she did for the lodge. I kid. You guys did a great job. It looks great. But we get scale when we collaborate. We get aggregation, which creates scale when we collaborate. But we've got to bring the stakeholders together to do that, and it's another way to reduce costs. We also need to reach out to our kids. We need to build human capacity in the villages and in the regions. If we can put a good group of kids in Bethel who know how to work on windmills, who know how to work on solar panels, we don't have to call people from Seattle to come up to fix the windmills. If we can put someone in the village who understands how to collaborate and can work across maybe multiple villages, we don't have to bring Givy out from Anchorage. Givy is my program manager. I like to send him out into the, but you know, it costs me a fortune to fly him around this state. And he's got to fly on duct tape airlines, and he's not really very too happy about that. So how do we collaborate? How do we build capacity? We got to get our kids excited about this. I was talking with Mike's guys from ANTHC about the solar panels they're putting out in the Nana region, which I just love. I love solar. I don't know why we don't have more solar out here. Look at the sun shining. But, you know, we got kids out there shooting BB guns at the solar panels. So how do we engage the youth so that they don't do that, right? So it's their solar panels. So they're the ones who want to build the solar panels and take care of the solar panels. So we've got to figure out how we build capacity. And that's also how we sustain. It's not enough to parachute somebody in, build the thing, and leave, and everybody's going, okay, now what do we do with this? And when it breaks, well, we don't have the skill to fix it, we don't have the money to fix it, so it just stays broken. That's not sustainable, and that's a huge investment in a lot of cases. So how do we do that? And technology and being able to deploy scalable and replicable technology. I called it appropriate technology the other day. It is incredibly important for us to have appropriate technology in a village, and the appropriateness is dependent on a lot of things. But the more we can define and identify technology that we can scale up, we buy a lot of it, we get a discount. We buy a lot of it, we all know how to work on it. We can replicate it, it's easier for everybody to adopt. And so that makes it cheaper and easier to deploy technology when it is scalable, when it is replicable. Granted, you can't put everything in every village, but 90% of the villages can use a similar type of technology. So why try and keep reinventing the wheel when we don't have to? That costs a ton of money. Let's try and identify technologies that are appropriate, scalable, replicable, and we can deploy faster. Lastly, funding. Got to pay for it. And I know the LNG project, let's knock on wood, gets us $200 million a year. It's a little ways off, but we can be doing some things today that all these other things will make it easier to attract outside funding. Maybe different other types of funding can come to the table. And so we have to also be willing to think differently about how we pay for our stuff. As much as we loved Uncle Ted, as the guys call him up here affectionately in the old days, and his bucket of money, you know, the feds aren't coming to the table with a lot of money. The state has a set amount of money. We're not going to deploy technologies unless we find money somewhere else. And so what can we do to think about doing that? So the long and short of it is, we think from an energy perspective at the community level, we agree it's got to be holistic and it'd be sustainable. We've got to look at doing stuff differently. We've got to increase our skill set, up our game. And we're happy to help anybody who needs our help. If you don't want our help, don't call. But if you do want our help, call. We'll send Gibby out, or I'll come up for another earthquake or so, and we'll try and do the best we can to help the villages with their energy issues. So thank you very much.
Well, you know, already we're hearing that kind of horizontal collaboration happening. So we're going to try to speed through this so we can get, we have a lot of people catching a flight tonight. So I'm going to shorten you guys a little bit. All right. And Brian's like, yes. So we're going to move along, and so we can get into a topic discussion and kind of build on it so that we can see how this collaborative effort can actually work and apply in Alaska today. So no further ado, Brian Butcher, HFC.
Hi, my name is Brian Butcher. I'm the Executive Director for the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. And Jack mentioned earlier that the genesis of CCHRC was about 15 years ago. And to talk about how small Alaska is, at that time I was working for Gene Theriault, who was the co-chair of the House Finance Committee. A couple of years later, I took a job with Gretchen's father-in-law, Dan Fauske at Alaska Housing, worked with Jack to help get funds for this, and played a small role in that. So if we can be as successful in what we're working on now as we have been, and you have been here, Jack, I think we're in pretty good shape. AHFC has at least a little piece in almost every part of housing that goes on in rural Alaska. We have a rural loan program for single family, for multifamily, tremendous amount of activity out there. We have a lot of different grant programs, supplemental housing, where we work with regional housing authorities, anywhere from $6 to $12 million a year to supplement the NAHASDA funds they have coming in. We have a rural teacher housing program that started about 12 years ago. when we were realizing that the turnover in the villages of teachers that would come in and a lot of times have substandard housing and would leave. And so you had children that were literally seeing a different teacher every year, and that continuity really didn't give them much of a chance working through education, because it's been shown that the value of teachers knowing the students and students knowing the teachers. And so we started out putting units out in rural Alaska for teachers. The program's been expanded to cover VPSOs, troopers, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. We've put hundreds of units all over rural Alaska. It's been a phenomenally successful program. Any senior housing, special needs housing that goes on and is able to be accomplished in rural Alaska, AHFC plays a substantial role in it. And so we very much look forward to the challenges that we see out there. Almost everybody sitting here on this panel we have a relationship with. There's some aspect of what's going on in rural Alaska that we work with them and collaborate with them on to make things more successful and to make the communities more livable. I'll wrap up with the energy aspect of it, which is, and I'm sure most of you are aware, we have the weatherization program and the home energy rebate program that works on making energy efficient improvements to homes. We've received over the last 7 years over $600 million from the governor and the legislature to do this in the state of Alaska. And we're seeing an average of about 30% reduction in energy usage with these homes statewide. So as you might imagine, we talk about LNG coming and needing more revenue and having to do something with the high cost of heating. And that all of those things are very serious issues that need to be worked on. But if you can reduce a third of the energy you're using in your home by doing this, taking advantage of these programs, that's about as big a bite of the apple, biggest bang for your buck you can possibly get. And we've been very happy and very proud at the role we've been able to play in doing that to the benefit of rural Alaska. Thanks.
Our next panelist is Mike Block with ANTHC, and I'm
Oh my
sorry.
goodness, wait, don't go.
He was just like hiding in there. Colleen, please, with HUD. So we're kind of working through this, and I'm sorry, I kind of rushed along. Mike is next.
Okay.
He has to catch the plane, so I'm trying to get to Mike.
Okay, I'll hurry.
Bill, quick.
So,
Jackie.
I'm just waiting for the little slide to come up that, if you will notice that this is not rural Alaska. This is Cook Inlet Housing Authority project before and after in Anchorage, using lots of resources from many people in the room. The only reason I just want to say I picked this slide because this was a project that was nationally recognized by the American Planning Association, the HUD Secretary's Award for Opportunity and Empowerment, and what Cook Inlet Housing Authority, the innovative thinking, partnering, a lot of the themes that we've talked about tonight, but also aligning priorities, working with the community, the local stakeholders, public and private investments and leveraging, and citizen participation. That's what has made the revitalization of the Mountain View neighborhood in Anchorage so successful, and it's great to have national recognition. But that's the segue into, we're a funder. We provide pretty significant housing and community development investment. Again, I'm the field office director for the Alaska HUD office. We have one office in Anchorage. Most of our funding goes through the state, through Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, through DCCED, and to the tribes. And then we also have some competitive funding. The segue, though, is I want to tell you there's an opportunity. You may be aware of it, but this is I just want to do this is a briefing awareness, if you will. There's a new opportunity to collaborate, to innovate, to look at designing resilience projects that can help better prepare our communities for disasters and other extreme events. So last week, I have a flyer here. HUD announced a $1 billion national competition. It's the National Disaster Resilience Competition. It's a mouthful. And it was placed, if you will, it's leftover money from congressional appropriation for Hurricane Sandy. There was quite a bit of money left over and a lot of competition for that money, so Congress decided to put it on the Community Development Block Grant chassis, if you will. So it's with HUD. A lot of the block grant activities are eligible activities, but it is much, much more. The state emergency management and DCCED or DCRA are the two agencies that know the most about what disaster recovery and response and community development block grant. But really, this competition is going to require a lot of partnering and collaboration with the state, the community stakeholders. There are 67 eligible entities for this $1 billion. The state of Alaska is the applicant for the funding. It's going to be kind of a long process. It's to promote risk assessment and planning and fund implementation of innovative resilience projects, as I said, to prepare communities. Because it's so complicated, really, they're using the model that was used for Hurricane Sandy, which is to, the Rockefeller Foundation has funding available, and they're going to be putting on really technical assistance workshops to help look at the science and risk-based assessments to help not just recover communities where there still might be need from the last, it's 2011, 12, and 13. We had presidentially declared disasters in Alaska all 3 of those years, with Galena and the communities around it being the last big disaster event in 2013. So I think, I don't know the date, sometime in October there'll be technical assistance workshop. They're going to have one in Alaska. I think it will be in Anchorage. And they're looking at the Rebuild by Design competition, which was used in the East to help those folks recover from that. So it's a 2-year competition. First is the framing phase, and that application will be due next March. And then for selected projects, it'll be an implementation. So I just wanted to make sure, if you haven't heard about this, it's you can find out at grants.gov, you can go on hud.gov. This is really an opportunity for our state to mobilize and develop some strategies. I'm happy to answer any individual questions. This is what the flyer looks like, and there's some really good instructive videos on data as well as how the process is going to work, and so we look forward to trying to support this effort. So, thanks.
So now you want me, right?
Now I want Mike, and he has talked really fast now.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Okay, now the water and sewer component of this whole discussion.
Okay, so my name is Mike Black. I work for Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. That's a consortium of all tribes in Alaska that have combined and actually compacted the duties and powers previously held by the Indian Health Service. So we perform those services for Alaska. In large part, our main mission is, or actually the vision of ANTHC is that Native Alaskans be the healthiest people in the world. Now that's a big job, and in part we have a large group, over 2,000 people, working on that issue. Money in the hospitals, and in the clinics, and in the health delivery area. But we also have a large group that I work with, it's Division of Environmental Health and Engineering, which many of you have had a chance to work with. And that their responsibility is to actually preventative health care through providing a healthy environment. And in part, I chose this picture to show you what that may mean in rural Alaska. That is a very nice pipe going across a very unstable ground and to a home that many of you might think, well, the pipe probably cost more than that house did. And in fact, we have spent, since 1980, almost in excess of $2 billion in building water and sewer in rural Alaska. I would love to say that it's been a completely success, but in the reality being, Sanitation in rural Alaska is a difficult challenge. It is an expensive challenge, and it does not end after we've built these systems. So, I'd like to share with you what it costs a household for water and sewer. And it would shock you if you aren't from the village as to how much money has to be paid by residents to achieve sanitation that keeps the population much healthier than they are without it. And of course, that saves money to the healthcare system. It saves lives. That's the point. I would like to say, since coming to ANTHC, and I've been there 4 years, I've surrounded myself with engineers, which was a new experience for me. And in some cases, it was a little troubling. But they are the greatest thing in the world once they get focused on the right issue. And it is reducing the cost for the homeowner of this service. And Eric and Dan Wrights and his crew back there that many of you have had a chance to work with, remarkable what they can do. Because what may be, to me, I don't know how to approach that problem. But they do. And we are using Alaska Energy Authority's resources, as well as federal dollars and USDA and others, to solve problems at the village scale. And that's largely through heat recovery, through renewables like biomass systems. All these are paying huge, huge positive results in providing the most important thing, that is healthy environment in the homes. And if and we certainly need, and we always will need, to collaborate with all of you, especially in the connection of the housing with the sanitation services. And we also need to do another thing. There are many homes in communities that are threatened, as Sally mentions, new talk. There's more new talks than just one. And in those communities, we have to do some innovation. And we can't justify, and we can't receive funding from federal or state sources to build a pipe system for a small threatened community. We have to do some things differently. And we're looking forward to that challenge. And I think that's enough for me.
All right, bringing up the rear, we have Jack Bear with Cold Climate Housing Research Center. And then we're going to do a topic discussion, how this all ties together. I want you to know that in all my village travel, water and sewer is the highest energy consumer in rural Alaska communities. So it is a huge component. And when you have communities that freeze up in the winter, which Ingemar brought up Sulliwick the other day in his presentation at the conference, the cost is directly to the residents, and unfortunately it's just something that we have to think innovatively to try to help them because they can't afford it. So, Jack?
I'm not sure where I want to go with this. I mean, most of you know what we've tried to accomplish here. And when I say we, I really mean we. We are a very small, the Cold Climate Housing Research Center, a very small family. How many of my great folks are out there? You know, it's not a crowd. We've got, when everybody's here, there's 30 of us with a vision to make a difference. Now, we expand that family and we expand that team to the communities we work with, to the home building associations throughout the state, to Alaska Housing Finance Corporation and HUD, and the folks that we work with, the housing authorities certainly. We expand that family, and we've been able to accomplish a lot through collaboration. Not because we're the greatest people in the world and it's all about us. It's because it's collaborative. And we share a vision that we can solve these problems as Alaskans, as a family of Alaskans, and we have huge problems. As you all know, on the sustainability issue, we have economic issues, we have environmental issues, we have cultural issues, we have building science issues, we certainly have huge energy issues. But together we can really find some solutions, and I think we can demonstrate it, and that's part of being a builder. If you can't kick the tires and you can't see and touch it, it's just words. So the idea of us getting together and making this start, lighting this little bit of a flame, is to do a demonstration of a success. So what do we pick? Where does it start? Yeah, the conversation that Mike and I had with Givy, we're just kind of talking, and Mike's talking about these separate toilets, these drying toilets that we've talked about. And we started to develop the synergy of what this is all about. We started with a toilet that needs to be ventilated. So now we bring in some building science and some mechanical systems that tie in, as we did in at Mothlock, the separate toilet with the heat recovery ventilator and an integrated heating unit for the house, so now it's all tied together. Then we bring in the envelope, and the envelope involves building science. It involves our great partners, the housing authorities and the weatherization people. It involves Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. Now we've got an envelope that is addressing the people living inside the house with good air and sanitation. Now, the foundation's failing, and this village may have to move, so let's go with the foundation. And where do we find the funds to work in that to get a foundation that can actually be skidded away? So whatever we're investing in that building can be movable. And then we start to think about energy, and Givy comes in. Solar hydronic. So you're not burning a fossil fuel 6 months a year, you're getting it from the sun. Solar voltaics to supplement the local grid. All these pieces we can start to incorporate if we talk and we communicate together. I really think that if we got in a room, we identified a problem, and we got in a room and we sequestered ourselves away in this place or somewhere, and we didn't leave till we walked out of there with a plan to get something done, we could accomplish great things. And that's the point. It's not just for us to get together and go, I do this and you do that, and the remarkable things everyone's accomplishing here. But together, we can really change this world that we live in. And our grandkids and their grandkids have a future. Economic development, create the jobs, educate the homeowners, educate the workforce, get local materials involved in this, this becomes bigger and bigger. When we start talking about sustainability, it begins with a toilet. And then it's the whole universe. Now it's Jackie.
Well, that was our topic discussion. So, if it begins with a toilet in a community that is eroding away, like Sally said, but it's basically just washing away, that can't apply for federal or state funding because they're going to have to relocate. Those people have been, just like New Talk, in the village of Kivalina on the northwest Arctic coast, hearing this for 20 years. What about today? What kind of project could be built upon that would help the people that live there today? Because why do they not get the help? And they're the ones really in that state of emergency, but it hasn't been declared an emergency because that funding follows the emergency. So you talk about HUD funding. That's left over from something, the hurricane happened, they funded it. I mean, that's kind of the progression of policy. Alaska is unique because our crisis is kind of backwards. It washes away, and we don't do anything in that 20 years that they're there. So how could we build and help people now? We have lots of communities like that in Alaska. That's kind of, I'm going to bring Mike back up and Jack and have you engage. But I challenge all of you panelists to get with the Department of Energy, with Givy, and become one of the energy ambassadors for our state. We need to create this synergy that takes it to the communities, not just with energy, but with housing and water and sewer and infrastructure and economic development. Everything has to come together in order to make that a success. So we're going to start with the separator toilet.
Okay.
And that's a live, real project that's happening, and we're going to build upon it. And I want you panelists and anyone in the audience that could offer to raise your hand, and we'll call on you to build upon this project. Our goal is to create something that maybe next month when we meet again, that we could now create an action plan of how everything will come together, and hopefully in a year's time we'll have a success story to say, look at what we did together. Another thing I want to just quickly point out, before you leave, if you have to run off, if you want to be on the mailing list for the video, please, there's a mailing list right over here, an email list. We'll be happy to get it out to you. So we're going to start with the separator toilets.
Okay, so Sally mentioned the experience that she and I had with New Talk, and a lot of that experience comes from a written policy that says no federal investment in homes that are in communities that are considered to be threatened or imminently threatened. So what that meant for New Talk, for Kivalina, for Shaktoolik, for Shishmaref, is that you will either get very little or no investment from many of the agencies that we represent. What that meant from ANTHC standpoint is that we would not build pipes, we would not make a major sanitation investment in those communities, and specifically, we were excluded from using federal funds for doing that in those communities. Okay. Well, that doesn't answer the problem. How do we get, the health of those communities is no less important to us as an ANTHC organization. So, recently, even though our main focus has been building mega projects, we have begun a project in Kivalina, which will allow us to do much of what Jack's been doing in some locations like Amothluck, and that is we go in, we are going to take some Indian Health Service funding, and we will be deploying the separate toilet and a rainwater catchment system to augment the water needs of the household. That won't be potable water, but it'll be water that will have utility purposes. And so we're going to design those systems, but then the challenge is taking and fitting that type of approach into a home and a homeowner's needs and into the individual floor plans of those homes and in whatever condition those homes are. Obviously, that means a lot of engagement with homeowners, with political and both at the regional level as well as the community level, governments that have a point of view, and of course, who's going to get those homes or who's going to get those facilities and how are we going to put them in. Now frankly, ANTHC likes to build, but we don't necessarily have all the capacity we need, and so we need collaboration in the engagement of the community and in the selection of the homes and in the design of the individual units as they are put into these homes. And so I think collaboratively we have an opportunity, and with Jack's organization certainly, and maybe certainly the Housing Authority and whomever else might be representing the interest, including the tribe and city. And this will be something that we don't necessarily have a lot of experience with as far as an organization is concerned. So it's a challenge. And with that, I'm willing, we have resources, and we'd like to collaborate.
So I want you to stay there. We're going to build upon this conversation. So as you input, I want you to come up here. We're going to see how many people we could get collaboratively into this circle up here in 15 minutes. And I'm the timekeeper. So I'll give you a 1-minute warning when we get to that 1-minute warning. So talked about ventilation. So this toilet needs ventilation.
You want me?
I want you
Again?
to. You're the ventilation guy.
Well, that's a piece. I look at these guys, and half of them out there, and they all fit into this effort. But let me talk about the ventilation side. Of course, that's our breathe system that is both heating and ventilation. So that's a piece that can be incorporated into what you're doing. Again, bringing the community into this discussion. If there's a number of houses, there's somebody living in that house, and they have to be bought in, and the community needs to understand it. So we got that piece. Now we got Sally in community planning.
Sally, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I heard my name, but I didn't hear how it was used.
Very well, very well.
It's my fault, Sally. we started with this toilet, and now we're talking about ventilating the building. But is the building, how long is the building going to be there? And what's the issue? Let's take, if we're talking about Kivalina, and it may move.
Right.
Is it eminently going to move? Is there going to be funding for us to, while we're working on this house, to develop a foundation that will allow this house to be moved to a new village with its nice new separate toilet and its good ventilation system?
Right, well, I think that's the name of the game for a lot of these communities because, I mean, they probably need to move from where they are, and that will probably eventually happen. And unless there's some big change in federal or state policy on relocating communities, they're probably going to follow a similar course to Newtok. But I really think that if technology changes, it can really make a difference in where these communities currently are located. And my big mantra that I've always made is one of the biggest issues is a lot of these communities were not developed in places that were really well suited for permanent development to begin with. They weren't really well suited for the types of technology that you find from the lower 48. So, we need to really be rethinking what gets built in rural Alaska, what kind of homes, what kind of infrastructure, what kind of public facilities. And maybe, part of it is that we build structures and facilities that can be moved easily if necessary.
So let's say we do that. Brian, how are you going to help us?
Yeah, I'm going to help you in any way I can, Jack. We play a major role in, if there is a move, if the community does have to be moved and there are new buildings and the NAHASDA funds come in every year, we play a major role in covering a lot of things that federal funds don't allow to have happen. We would have a huge funding piece of that. If we're just talking about simply the ventilation of a house, our weatherization program isn't just about energy efficiency, it's about life safety issues. It's about making sure homes are ventilated, making sure they're safe. And it also extends the life of the home. We have a very difficult time getting housing built in rural Alaska because of the cost. So what you do have there, and looking at what you showed, Mike, in the house, if we had, and Scott certainly knows this, our weatherization contractors go in and do the work to that house, it could extend by years to decades the value of that house. So when you do put in a toilet, you do put in a lot of work, water and sewer into that home. You're actually putting it into a home that's going to be there and not something that 5 years later you're going to think, wow, did we spend a lot of money to a home that no longer exists.
Okay, so I'm gonna challenge you if you're not gonna come forward. I know there's a bunch of engineers over
you
here
got
that need
one.
to be up here because they will be part of Mike's team, right? So you can join them.
So as far as going to getting our funding through Alaska Housing Authority, the AHFC, getting our weatherization funding and going ahead and doing weatherization services and providing those weatherization services and being able to leverage the weatherization services with the HUD funding and coming up here and doing our NAHASDA funding, being able to do that so whatever weatherization cannot cover in the scope, we're able to use the funding from the NAHASDA so that we're able to help out with the homeowner and with the home. And then also working with other agencies, so as far as HUD being able to come up
You're cute.
and leveraging.
I would also say, besides the Indian housing and HUD funding, conventional streams of funding, these are communities that were impacted by federally declared disasters in this covered period of time. This could be an opportunity to look at long-term resilience in the development and redevelopment of these communities. So I would urge that the state could look at this as there could be this other funding opportunity to help support long-term support for the communities.
The energy aspect of this is huge. It's right at the base of all of it. So comprehensive energy planning is absolutely essential, Mr. Theriault. But also when you get down to the individual house level, it's not just the, what's going through the toilet, but it's, what's heating that home. And if you were exhausting the air from the house to ventilate the house through the toilet, you accomplish two things with one system. And so that works. But you do have to provide enough adequate heat, and you want to do that as efficiently as possible. So we're there with that.
Well, since you've talked about energy, let's propose with new talk
You
and
start, Bill.
let's propose with new, we've got an energy plan, we're gonna have to rebuild the community. So we'll be looking at a rebuilt electrical system for distribution of power from a diesel with wind and solar and a whole combination of renewable energy all designed at once to have as much renewable integration into the new system as possible. But as a bridge, before we have the money to build out that new system, we might look at individual housing or individual building technologies. Down in the lower 48, we call them off-grid technologies. So a combination of wind, solar, and battery systems that are mobile, that are 5 to 6 kilowatts, that you plug right into the house. We see this all over the Navajo Nation, for example, where most of their housing is off-grid housing. And we have individual units that we drive up to the house, we plug right in, and it's a windmill and a solar panel and a battery pack. And it operates that house completely off-grid. So it's a transition technology that we could deploy while we're waiting to build out our integrated system and waiting for the rest of the community to move. Or it transitions us, and it is resilient. So in the event that you have a climate event or a weather event and you lose power, every house has an individual power pack, so to speak, that can, or the major critical infrastructure, the school, the hospital, the police station, has some built-up backup systems that they can operate, quote-unquote, off-grid in the event of a climate event or if you're transitioning to have your new system built.
And in the community this house is going to be in, and the toilet's going to be in the house, if we are looking at in a region to try and identify sources of local energy that can be developed, and the community's going to move, it's great if there is an individual home energy source that can move right along with the house. But if there's going to be a centralized system, as the community is deciding where they move, let's not move further away from the renewable energy source. Let's move closer to it or right on top of it if it's at all possible. But we know, delivery of energy over great distances to serve very light loads is a challenge. And that needs to be incorporated or at least thought about as villages consider moving.
And so one thing that will be able to move, that ANTHC is working on with funding from the Denali Commission and Rural Development, is building human capacity, and that's through training. And so we were working with about 40 communities right now to provide custom training for operators in these communities, including in Newtok, to more efficiently, as far as energy and for long-term life of equipment in these communities last. And it's all being paid for. It's grant funding up front, but it's going to be saving money in the short term. In that 5 years, we're waiting to move the water plant to Newtok or develop a new site in Kivalina. We'll have local capacity that's being trained up to operate their system efficiently and provide savings in the near term.
And I'd build on what Gavin just mentioned in terms of just the overall approach to how that development happens is to deliberately focus on sustainability through the local capacity and try to avoid some of the past mistakes in terms of making the stuff that we're putting in workable, maintainable, operational at a local with that local capacity, make that technology appropriate. And I love the approach that Jack provided yesterday through that video of requiring the homeowners to participate in the construction. So that's a method of enabling that community to sustain long-term in terms of their ability to rebuild themselves the next time.
And we're going to look at connecting people to local manufacturers, using local materials, and again, that local labor piece.
I was invited by Jack today along with another colleague. We have in the past actually a product that we developed. We have moved part of the village, Shishmaref, and that was falling into the sea. It was from erosion, and we moved them on skis. And we'd like to work with Jack and possibly in future stuff, future products or projects, see what we can do to help out.
And so when it all comes down to it, and the 56 tribes that are in, and we're talking about New Talk, and we heard Sally say that there was a glitch in with the community sitting there going, well, now it's a little split, and they want this and they want that. Well, this is where our consortium comes in. This village is now compacted with AVCP, and how do you use our corporation to come in and help bring it all back together? Because as these projects go, you're going to need. It's going to, what I mentioned earlier, it's going to have to be accepted by the village before we're going to have to build a house or a toilet, and that's where AVCP sits.
Okay, Dorothy Shockley. Go ahead. I work for, don't be shy, come on. Come on in, because I was hoping everybody would be up here. We have 5 minutes. So, talk fast.
I worked for a state senator for 8 years, and one of the things that I worked on was water and sewer, and found out a lot in regards to what is going on in the state, but a lot of what's not and what needs to change. So it's great to see all of these minds working together, but definitely we need to have affordable, efficient systems in the homes. I think, one thing that we found is Alaska, the state really needs to step up and put more funds into, especially water and sewer, right? And I think from the very beginning, they've only matched federal funds. So, at times that's only 19%, I think. And I think as of 2009, of all the revenue that has come from oil, I think the state spent 1/10% on water and sewer in rural Alaska. So, for me, it's the state stepping up, but also looking at what, Jack and his team has done in regards to affordable, efficient systems that, single units, so that, I like the box system. I'm not sure what kind of toilet they're talking about, but I like the box system, and I think, as of 2000, a couple of years ago, there were still 6,000 homes without water and sewer. And I think the other thing to that is educating legislators. We had a meeting probably 5 years ago. We had a state legislator from Anchorage who had been there for quite a few years. He asked, while we were meeting, are there still homes without water and sewer? And everybody's mouth just dropped because, people in Anchorage or sometimes other places are not aware of life in rural Alaska. So a lot of education and a lot of promotion. So thank you.
Okay, 1 minute. We got a couple more people, but we need to wrap it up, so 1 minute each.
Yeah, I'll be real quick. I'm Judith Gruner from CCHRC, and Jack hasn't said this yet, but in order to replicate this, we need to educate the homeowner, and we need to do data collection so that we know what's failing and what's not. And that's not just the hard data that you get from what your walls are doing, but just surveys to the homeowners so that we know what's working for them culturally and what's not. That way we can replicate what we're doing. So we do a lot of homeowner manuals, and we do walk the homeowners through before they use the houses that Cold Climate works on. So just making sure that happens as part of that education process to improve on it.
To build on that, sorry, you also need to look also at the various options and life cycle costs for them, and it's not just about are they cultural, but also are they more cost effective and the more durable and so if we're trying to build a house for the future and for future generations, that durability thing comes into play. So that's another aspect we get into.
So I think if you're looking at this holistically, which that word came up a number of times, that in addition to the training, we need a youth educational component. And if we're going to have all this brain power come out to rural Alaska and scientists and engineers and whatnot, then really getting the youth to holistically look at what's happening with the environment, with climate change, and then how their specific environment in the village is being affected, and taking advantage of maybe them being able to get some STEM credits or whatnot. And having that, again, the kids have that buy-in, so they're not using their BB guns on the solar panels.
Okay, to wrap this all up, and then I'll have Jack do some closing comments. Look at how many people got engaged. So this synergy of sharing information, building upon a project that could go way beyond this stranded community that feels so hopeless is the whole point of this holistic approach. Is taking it from that person who's standing in Kivalina with no water and sewer, with a contaminated water tank, and nobody is coming to help them. So we all need to start looking at this from that perspective, not from the outside in and for them. We need to all start looking at it from that humanity perspective of being in their shoes and how could we help them. Because the energy crisis, what we're finding in all these platforms is that we have so many things in common across rural Alaska. So just educating and bringing out that awareness is key to this, but the collaborative efforts, if you have multiple agencies going into a 3-month window of construction season, working together to accomplish a lot in that short window of time, is far more valuable to the people it's affecting and impacting than having siloed individuals come in on their own agenda all separately. And so I want to thank everybody who came up here, and before you leave, again, if you want the video, please sign the email list, but Jack, if you just want to close this up.
Well, really, this really says it all. This says it all. There wasn't one person that expressed themselves here that didn't have a practical solution that we couldn't do next year. There was no, we're going to have a study and we're going to look for this, and 8 years from now we might be able to do something. You could hit the ground with the ideas that came up here next spring and make a difference to a family, to a household, to a community. And so, that said, I mean, you guys are all, you're all volunteers in this effort now. And everybody, I'm looking out there at a lot of folks I know that would be up here with just as good an ideas as this. So let's build on this momentum and scale it. Scale what we can actually get done. Pilar, thank you. Yes, we can't wait. We can't wait for the power line and the dam and all that. We have to start addressing it now. We have to address energy efficiency immediately. We can't address this toilet in the system that I was talking about without an energy efficient home. And we can't do it without workforce. And we can't do it without creative financing. And we can't do it without great minds. But we can do it. This is going to be a dream come true. You watch what we can do together. So we're going to follow up, and a number of you are going to be stuck in this wave.
As energy ambassadors for the state of Alaska, because we're all Alaskans working to help Alaskans, I want to thank Jack and CCHRC for all their help in pulling this together. I really, you know, one of the things is I love analogies. So we're in the heart of Alaska creating a heartbeat, because all of these siloed agencies now have this connection. So that heartbeat is going to carry out to every angle of Alaska that we could reach. So I just want to thank everybody, and thank CCHRC, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so you got them all signed up.